What's up, everybody? And it's time for Hot Takes, the show where I take your hot takes and react to them. It's my chance to interact with the comment section of all the videos that I post all week, or at least some of them. We're going to start with a comment on the video about the Browns losing the game and why the loss hit a little harder than I think most people anticipated. Here is GAROU. It says, I think this loss felt different because it was such a complete loss. The offense had sparks, but also made a lot of mistakes and turned the ball over with drives stalling out. The defense couldn't seem to stop anything against one of the NFL's worst offenses. Special teams gave up great field position and allowed a completely unblocked punt block. And Kevin did the thing that drives everybody crazy, where he gets cute with the playbook at critical moments. Well, again, Kevin didn't call the 2-point conversion that Quincy forgot to toss the ball on. But Kevin going for two certainly is one of those things. So slight correction there. It wasn't just the 2-point conversions failures to start it from the first kickoff when they allowed the Titans to return it from the 50. Yep, that did happen in this game as well. That said, the rookies looked fantastic, especially Fannin. He's been a pleasant surprise. Not only I expected him to be bad. Oh, you expected him to be bad? But I definitely didn't expect him to look this good early. Samson, too. I was worried about his size early in the season, but I love how tough he runs and how hard he is to bring down. Yeah, it certainly is one of those losses that leaves you with a mixed bag, right? I think the day after and the day of losing that game, it sucked because no matter how you flip it, no matter how you try to turn it, the Browns just lost to a 1-win football team, and that never feels good. Like losing to a 1-win football team, that stinks, right? But that's in the very short term, right? That is the cherry on top of a shitty season. The long-term view kind of sets in the days after the loss, right? Right after you're over the immediate circumstance of losing the game and you're starting to evaluate, well, what do we see in the game? And that's where you could be encouraged because you saw good things out of Harold Fannin. You saw a lot of good, solid progress from somebody like Shedeur Sanders. You saw good things from a lot of different players, a lot of different young guys on this team that encourages you going forward. You also have to keep in mind that where you are right now is a team that can lose to the Tennessee Titans, who have maybe won in the last 2 years, 5 games. So it keeps you in perspective, right? I wouldn't run away and be like, oh, these rookies are so great that we're going to win the Super Bowl next year. But it also gives you some hope and some perspective as the week goes on, for sure. Miles Jaden says, anybody who wants Shedeur to start should be rooting for Kevin to keep his job. A new head coach paired with a top 3 pick usually means a new quarterback. This is the interesting thing here, right? Because I have not heard enough people focus on this as much as I feel like they should. Because as much as some people who really like Sanders really seem to want Kevin fired, I don't think we're looking at all the possibilities of what a new coach could mean. Now, is there a reality where a new coach comes in and they're super excited about Shedeur and they're ready to commit to Shedeur? Maybe that's a possibility, right? I know some people think the Browns will hire Dion, but I highly doubt that that's something Dion's interested in. And I highly doubt that that's something the Browns would be interested in. And I think both sides have good reasons not to be interested in that. But that possibility aside, it's real easy to end up in a situation where a new coach looks at all the stuff that people said about Kevin Stefanski during the season with Shedeur on the roster and goes, well, I'm not going to deal with that. Let's just move on, or let's de-emphasize him, right? Like, it could be a situation like that, assuming that firing Kevin, who from all accounts, right? I know what the narrative is with Kevin and Shedeur, but from all accounts, Kevin has been helpful to Shedeur Sanders. This comes from people inside the building. Removing him and replacing him with an unknown could provide a more hostile entity for Shedeur. And what if that does happen? Because right now, I don't think the Browns coaching staff is hostile to Shedeur. Maybe they were skeptical at first, but I don't think they were hostile to him. But somebody else could come in and be hostile. Like, that can certainly happen. And I don't think that would be good for the Browns, So we'll see what happens, but that is a dynamic in this whole thing that is interesting, right? It might ultimately be that the noise around Shedeur is what gets Kevin fired at the end of the day. But what if that noise is also something that produces a result, Kevin getting fired, that actually isn't the best for him? Something to consider. We'll see how it plays out. Ty says this: the Browns are not turning down a top 3 pick at QB if they have the top 3 pick. So basically, we're Raider fans for the rest of the season, as if being a Browns fan wasn't difficult enough. Basically, what they're saying there is that the Raiders need to win a game for the Browns to jump them in the draft order. And if the Browns have a top 3 pick, they're not going to turn down a quarterback. I agree with that. I don't think it's, again, I talked about this a ton in my Q&A video, so I'll be brief here. But there is an idea here that I think people are defaulting to that I don't necessarily default to, which is because you draft somebody at quarterback, that means the story is over for Shedeur. I don't think that has to be the case. If you want to know more about why I think that's the case, go check out the Q&A video from earlier. But I don't think that has to be the case. So, yeah, I think if the Browns are able to take a quarterback without having to sacrifice much, they're going to do it. No doubt, and it might be something that they have to consider just because they can't put all the eggs in one basket here. The next hot take comes from Blank Slate Man. But we'll get to that in just a second. I got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. All right. So Blank Slate Man says it doesn't matter what I or the average fan thinks of Shedeur or his fan base. A 5th round pick being their franchise QB would be the best thing that's happened to this team since return. I would argue anybody turning out to be the franchise quarterback would be that. The amount of leverage that it would give us is extraordinary. It would let us get to the playoffs faster. Also would give the Browns one of the potentially greatest draft classes of all time. Yeah, and apparently a lot of people had stuff to say about this comment. I don't think this comment is that controversial. If Shedeur works out, that's great. So many people are caught up in arguments or in what they personally want to do, and it is to a point to where their own personal opinions about the team are more important than the actual results for the team. And if Shedeur ends up being great, even if you're one of those people who doubled down after the draft fall and was like, oh, well, Shedeur is not even an NFL quarterback. And you look like an asshole because he does look like an NFL quarterback. You just got to let that shit go and go with the flow and say, hey, look, I'm happy that the Browns are winning, right? Like, ultimately, that's the thing. Do you want the Browns to finally get a quarterback, be winning, and then you be out here still mad at it because you got a beef with like a couple of people who got a little overzealous about this guy on the internet? You know what I mean? There's what you think will happen. There's what I think will happen. There's what I think is likely. And then there is what actually happens. And if what actually happens doesn't line up with those things, but it does line up in something that's positive for the Browns, why wouldn't I root for it? Right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what I want. I want the Browns to be a better football team. Whether it's my suggestions or not that gets them there is pointless, right? I just want them to play better football, be a more meaningful team, and hopefully win a championship, right? And if it's Shedeur to get you there, it's Shedeur to get you there, and we'll celebrate Shedeur, right? It gets so easy when you're online to get caught up in rhetoric, right? And let other people's rhetoric control where you spend your energy if you don't keep your big goal in focus. I see this online all the time where, let's say that somebody is a Browns fan and they get caught up in the rhetoric that other Browns fans are using, and they start to become anti that Browns fan because they don't think that Browns fan is correct. But then they end up being wrong, and now they're rooting against the Browns because they're wrong, right? Like, it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day if you're right or wrong about how the Browns are going to fix it. They're not going to give you a plaque in Canton because you predicted this correctly, right? I'm not getting a plaque. You're not getting a plaque. Lima and Anthony Lima and Ken Carmen ain't getting a fucking plaque. Nobody's getting a plaque for predicting this correctly. The only thing you can really get out of this is enjoying your team be successful. And that's the one thing I've learned is you just got to take your ego out of it sometimes and just enjoy the result. And if the result is good, why be angry at it? You know what I mean? Like, we saw this with people who are dead set against Baker and they were upset when Baker had success. We saw this with people who were dead set against Kevin Stefanski and they were upset when the Browns had success in 2023. The Browns have such little success. I'm not going to put myself to be in position to root against it, in my personal opinion. I think that's silly. And I agree with you. Zane Trade 92 says this: thank you for being the voice of reason. Even I get caught up in the mixed feelings because of how extreme his fans are. But when I listen to Shedeur himself, he's super likable. Just seems like a good guy. The most important thing is the Browns. Yeah, the most important thing is the Browns. And I think it also matters, like, that Shedeur seems like a really good person too, right? Like, if his fans are a bit overzealous, okay, that's okay. We've dealt with overzealous fans before. Like, this is the thing that surprised me about this. We are, as Browns fans, are acting like this is something new. Is it more extreme than other situations we've dealt with? Sure, but is it new? No. This isn't much different than the Baker Bros. This isn't much different than the Odell only people, right? This isn't much different than Deshaun Watson and the hellstorm that brought upon this franchise. I would argue this is much better than that, right? Like, dealing with Chad Johnson and Ocho Cinco being too excited about your quarterback and maybe throwing blame on other pieces of the organization that are a little bit unnecessary is better than being accused of, like, being the problem in the NFL when it comes to how they treat women. So pick your poison there, right? But I would much rather prefer it to be controversy about football than controversy about court. So yeah, like, he's likable. He doesn't have anything like that on his name. And I think the longer he's here and if he becomes the guy, the more that's going to shine and the less we're going to care about how overzealous some people might have been at the beginning of this whole thing. Hell, even with Kevin Stefanski, let's say Shedeur and Kevin stick it out together and they become a successful tandem. We're going to laugh. The people who are saying this stuff about him, the sabotage stuff, are going to laugh at how they felt at the beginning of this whole thing. So yeah, it's not static. Things are going to change. And if he's successful, then the narratives will evolve around him and he would actually grow into being able to, with, like, not, how do I say this? He would actually grow into a player being worthy of those narratives, so it wouldn't bother you as much. You feel me? So that's also something to keep in mind. But yeah, I just don't think Browns fans should put themselves in a position where if he is going to be good, you should root against it, because what is the point of that? But y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.